Welcome back to another FC25 video. Today's video is a custom tactics video, and to be honest, I'm doing this video because in a couple of my recent videos I've been having comments asking for the custom tactics that I use, and I just felt that I might as well create a custom tactic video of how I actually play this game. So as you can see, this is my Brobby's Boys account. It is the 4-3-3 fourth variation. Personally, my favourite formation on the game at the moment. And I'm basically just going to talk through the sort of players I think you should use for this formation, the player roles, and basically just general tactics. Obviously, when you look at this team, you're probably going to say that it's not the best team. It isn't, but this is a completely free account. I personally think it's actually a really good team considering I've not spent a single penny and is basically just doing evos, playing through the game, completing a few SBCs. But the main thing we are looking at is the 4-3-3 fourth variation. So this is the variation that has a cam instead of having a flat 3 or a CDM, or the 2 CDMs and a centre mid. And I just personally think that this is the best 4-3-3 formation out there. And we'll look through at the tactics. So first of all, obviously 4-3-3 attack is its official name. Build up style is short passing, and then defensive approach is balanced. Personally, a lot of this I do actually just leave as default because I think you can genuinely sometimes just muck about with tactics too much, and this game just doesn't need to be overcomplicated. So we're going to go into edit tactic. Now, these are the player roles I'd be putting on each of the positions. So for me, left wing and right wing should both be inside forward plus. Otherwise, if you can get inside forward plus, for me at this stage, you should really be looking at plus on every single player role. Then at striker, I personally would go for someone that's got advanced forward plus, simply because for me, advanced forward plus is actually the best player role for a striker. But that could genuinely be down to the way that I play, and I do sort of want to say that as a disclaimer. This is perfect for how I play. Now, you're more than welcome to use the custom tactic code, and if it doesn't work for you, maybe you can change a couple things around, but this is how the game works for me perfectly. Then in at cam, I would have a shadow striker plus, because you can see when you have the ball, your cam essentially is just another striker, sits right behind the striker, which is absolutely fantastic. So at one point it sort of does actually become a 4-2-4. Then I would always have one box to box plus option, simply because I think when you're defending, obviously you do want one player that sits a little bit deeper. Now, personally, because I have Perlo, he is currently on Playmaker plus because I prefer him to actually attack on this game. But if I really wanted to, I could make him a deep line playmaker, play him a bit more like in real life, and he sort of sits in the actual middle instead of attacking. But that's just the way that I play, so I do prefer Playmaker plus on Perlo. For me, you can either have two box to box pluses, box to box plus, and a Playmaker plus, or you could have a Playmaker plus and then a deep line Playmaker plus as well. There are obviously different combinations you can have in midfield, and realistically, it's just depending on how you play this game. So for me, I would have Perlo as a Playmaker plus, and then Olmo as a box to box plus. That's just the way that I play this game. Then looking at the defence, I always have my fullbacks on wing back, whether that be wing back plus or wing back plus. Fortunately, Hato and Maicon both have wing back plus. So you can see that when I have the ball, the Maicon and Hato do actually move up, and they do start supporting the midfield, which is absolutely fantastic. Then two centre backs, I would always go Defender plus plus. For me, if you can find defenders with Defender plus plus, it's just in my experience of playing this game, it is the best player role that I've found, because Stopper plus plus, I find that they just sort of push up too much and they just get caught out far too often. And then ball playing defender, I do think it's actually okay as long as you do have a defender plus plus next to them. But personally, I would be going defender plus plus. Just make sure that you've got your centre backs back. And then for goalkeeper, you can have goalkeeper plus plus or sweeper keeper plus plus. It's realistically just down to how you play. I found that goalkeeper plus plus is a far better player role for goalkeepers than sweeper keeper plus plus, because sometimes the goalkeepers with sweeper keeper plus plus, they sort of stand far too close to the edge of the box, and on this game you will just get punished. So that's why I do prefer to have goalkeeper plus plus. So this is how I set up my 4-3-3 attack, and the code is JK7 capital C question mark Q capital H RTH capital T. So if you would like to use this tactic, then by all means go ahead and use it. So I'm going to play one game just to show you that the way that I play, it works for me perfectly. I'm normally scoring 3, 4, 5 goals per game. For me, it's a really good attacking formation. So with that being said, let's head into the gameplay. Okay, so in this section, I will be talking about the weaknesses and the strengths of this formation and the tactics that I've used. Starting off with the weaknesses of this formation and how I set it up, I would have to say the fullbacks. My main objective is to attack on this game, and that's why I have my fullbacks set to wing back. However, this does create the issue of when losing possession of the ball high up the pitch, both of my fullbacks are out of position. So a real quick fix to this issue is to have a fullback who has the player role fullback plus plus. It means you won't be as defensively exposed as I am, but that is because I'm confident enough to outscore my opponent, because I know realistically I'm probably not keeping a clean sheet. The other weakness, because it is so heavily attacking, you need players with good stamina. So in this specific team, my Hato and Mycon both being on wingback plus plus and not having relentless means by about the 65th minute, they're just done for that game. So do bear in mind having extra fullbacks on the bench or centre backs who can fill the role for the last sort of 30-35 minutes. But in general, I would say have both centre mids have a minimum of 95 stamina, especially if they don't have relentless. The wingers, realistically, you should be aiming for about 90 stamina plus, and that's why in my team, Brobby usually has to come off because he has 65 stamina, unfortunately, and he's just absolutely dead by about the 55th, 60th minute. And I would say they are the only real weaknesses to this formation and how I set it up. So onto the strengths. The big one has to be it's incredible for attacking. This formation in this setup is essentially a 2-4-4. Because your fullbacks push up as almost left and right mids, one of your two centre mids, depending on the player roles, they will be attacking. Then your cam becomes a striker, the wingers tuck in and also become strikers, and then your actual striker. So that's why it's basically a 2-4-4. From my experience, I average minimum 4 to 5 goals a game. It's just more, can I score more than my opponent? And I would say about 70% of the time I do. It would be dishonest to say you'll never lose a game again using this formation and tactics, but I do think it will give you a far greater chance of winning. Once you learn this formation and the tactics, then I would personally say 90 to 95% of the time, your expected goals probably will be higher than your opponent's. Another strength to this formation is the cam. So in this team, Bergkamp is fantastic. The fact that he will run past my striker to get into the striker position means that if I pass the ball into Van Persie's feet, then I have two options. I can pass it back to one of my centre mids, ping it over the defence. The second option, with Van Persie, I turn and play a through ball. So having the cam on Shadow Striker Plus Plus, for whatever reason, I find the opposition centre backs won't actually track the run of the cam, and it leads to just a really good shooting chance. The final strength of this formation and tactic is if you have a centre back with long ball pass plus, so in my case, UCL Dream Chasers Hero Marquez, I can ping the ball out to either Lang or Brobby, so obviously whoever in your situation, the left wing, right wing, and because they're both on inside forward plus plus, they just sort of stand in this position between the centre back and the fullback, but the fullback doesn't actually react. So you have a free opportunity to run to the byline, cut it back, which is how I score a lot of goals. But also because of how the tactic is set up, when cutting the ball back, you normally have a striker, right wing, left wing, depending on which side you are attacking from, and your cam also in the box, ready for the cutback. So you've basically got three players on a cutback, which is absolutely fantastic. And overall, this formation is great for attacking, and if you want to play on the front foot, instead of trying not to concede, but you probably will concede if you have both fullbacks on wingback plus plus, so do just bear that in mind, because essentially you do only have two defenders if you are countered, but if you have two really good centre backs, then you should be able to cope with the counter attacks, which then sets you up for your own counter attack and leads to you just absolutely obliterating your opponent's defence and outscoring them tenfold. Thank you for watching this video. If you did enjoy it and would like to see more FC25 content, then click the video on the left for my FUT Birthday Hero Captavia review, and on the right is my FUT Birthday Sanchez review. But for now, I'll see you in the next one.